Hola, buenos días a todos. Hoy es 10 de marzo, son las 10:08 de la mañana y empezamos ya con el mensaje de hoy que se titula Entregarse es encontrarse. En este último mes del invierno y ya aproximándonos a la primavera, terminamos el recorrido que representa Respuestas al Corazón, que empieza el 21 de marzo. Este 21 de marzo vamos a volver a hacer este recorrido y por lo tanto este mes representa tanto el disfrute de los frutos de haber hecho el recorrido, como quien dice, como la preparación de la semilla para el próximo año de lo que vamos a plantar esta primavera. Y estamos hablando de la unión, de llegar a esa unión. Y para llegar a esa unión lo que se interpone en la experiencia de esa unión es el pequeño yo, el ego. Y el ego, desde ese punto de vista, hay que entregarlo. Entregarse es encontrarse. Entregarlo quiere decir dejar de darle importancia. El ego es el animal humano. El ego va del punto A al punto B al punto C. Es decir, que tiene un relato, un pasado y un futuro en su cabeza, que solamente existe en su cabeza. Y hay que entregarlo, olvidarse de la importancia que tiene para encontrarse con esa divinidad que está en ti y todo a tu alrededor. En todo caso, empezamos ya con el mensaje de hoy y ya sabéis que si os gusta darle al me gusta y compartirlo en las redes y suscribiros al canal y darle a la campanita para recibir este mensaje día a día, que este próximo año lo vamos a hacer de una manera especial, con meditación por la mañana, meditación por la tarde, reflexión del día, repaso de la reflexión del día, y donde vais a poder seguirlo y seguir la disciplina durante un año y de esa manera el próximo invierno estar plenamente disfrutando de unos frutos que ya simplemente es un ciclo, porque esos frutos dan la semilla para el siguiente año. Y bueno, pues empezamos ya con el mensaje de hoy. Antes de empezar a ver esta página, cierra los ojos y deja la respiración completamente sola. Permite que los pulmones, por sí solos, se paren si se quieren parar. Inspiren si quieren inspirar. Siente lo que sientes cuando inspiras. Siente lo que sientes cuando expiras. Abre lentamente los ojos y empieza a explorar. Entregarse es encontrarse. Y como estamos preparando la semilla que viene a su vez de una semilla, que son las enseñanzas de mi maestro GURURAJ ANANDA YOGI, pero que son unas enseñanzas muy universales y que por lo tanto interpenetran o contienen la esencia de toda enseñanza espiritual y por lo tanto son válidas para cualquier seguidor de cualquier religión o de cualquier enseñanza. Hoy, en este día de hoy, donde estamos preparando esa semilla de el entregarse, lo voy a dedicar a un satsang de GURURAJ que está en inglés pero va con subtítulos al castellano, al español, y por lo tanto lo vais a poder seguir todos. Es un satsang para que podáis ver hoy o a lo mejor durante el fin de semana, pero tiene que ver con todo esto que estamos hablando de la dualidad entre lo horizontal, el mundo relativo, el mejorarse a uno mismo, el ir del punto A al punto B, el mundo de las polaridades, todo es polar, bien, mal, positivo, negativo, día, noche, hombre, mujer, derecha, izquierda. Entre ese mundo relativo de polaridades y ese otro concepto de la unidad, digamos 2 y 1 que son 3, el misterio de la Santísima Trinidad, como quien dice, bueno, pues es un proceso realmente que no es cuestión de creer en ello, sino es cuestión de experienciarlo. El mensaje para esta era, para estos tiempos, el mensaje espiritual no es cree, es experimenta, experiencia, no es cree en Dios, sino vive a Dios o experimenta a Dios, vive esa actualidad existente aquí y ahora. Os dejo ya con las palabras de GURURAJ ANANDA YOGI del libro Respuestas al Corazón, en la voz de Elda Hidalgo.
10 de marzo. Entregarse es encontrarse. Las palabras ya no sirven, solo la experiencia. No sé lo que es, pero todo lo acepto, pues todo existe en mí. Esas circunstancias en las que te encuentras pueden resultarte adversas, pero son las mismas lecciones que necesitas aprender. No tiene sentido recibir palmaditas en la espalda todo el tiempo. Estamos aquí, en el colegio de la vida, para aprender, para evolucionar y para llegar de vuelta a casa, al punto de comienzo. Y desde el punto de vista cósmico de la vida, no has partido de ningún sitio y no llegas a ningún sitio. Estáis todos simplemente ahí. Entregarse es ser capaz de encontrarse a uno mismo y conocer con verdadera realización que este pequeño cuerpo, esta pequeña mente, este pequeño ego asumido, no es el final ni el objetivo de la vida. Es solo un instrumento. Lo utilizamos. Es como la flor que se ofrece en el altar al reino de los cielos que reside en el interior. Esto es entrega. El otro nombre para la entrega es amor. ¿Qué es lo que entregas? Entregas tu personalidad. Entregas tu ego al amor.
Y como hoy está dedicado a esa entrega total del ego, que quiere decir que integra, digamos, integra lo que es entregar la belleza del ego, es decir, entregar esa flor bien arreglada, y ese es el camino del mejoramiento de uno mismo, o el camino de purificación, que también se llama, ¿no?, la sadhana espiritual, los 40 días del desierto, es decir, el proceso de purificación del ego, que incluye la aceptación y la entrega de amorosamente a la vida. ¿Qué quiere decir? Olvidado de mí mismo, en el sentido de pensar que el objetivo y el fin es el relato de este pequeño ego. Y la práctica hoy, ya sabéis, es, bueno, pues dedicar un tiempo a escuchar este satsang y de esta manera ir imbuyéndote de la fuente de las enseñanzas a partir de las cuales vamos a elaborar a partir del próximo 21 de marzo el camino de un año de respuestas al corazón desde el principio hasta el final. Y como dije al comienzo de este vídeo, será un camino que caminaremos juntos, pero cada uno siguiendo su camino, como quien dice. Es un experimento muy interesante para todos los que os queráis unir y Y una manera de, en vez de creer, experimentar. En vez de creer en Dios, experimentar a Dios. En vez de pensar que esto de la meditación es bueno, experimentar los beneficios de la meditación plenamente. Y nada más. Ya sabéis que son solo 16 horas y hoy además es solamente escuchar atentamente un satsang. Para escuchar hay que estar completamente vacío, no tener ninguna opinión sobre nada. Tienes que vaciarte para escuchar, tienes que simplemente estar atento como si te estuviera hablando Dios mismo, porque en realidad Dios mismo es el que habla a través de todas las bocas y por lo tanto hay que escucharle atentamente siempre, desde todas las bocas donde habla. Bueno, pues nada más, que paséis muy bonito día y os dejo ya con el satsang de GURURAJ. Namaste.
The present. The past might never come or might never be there. We only think of the past and the future because we measure life in a linear manner, proceeding from A to B to C, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the secret would be to live not horizontally, but to live vertically. And in that vertical line, you are in the presence. And in the present, rather, you feel the presence of a power which is totally beyond you. For example, I'm talking to you now, and as most of the meditators know, if you ask me what I was talking about half an hour later, I would know. Because I'm here just in the present. And as I would say, that living linearly, one is mixed up with time and space. You might be thinking now that next week you've got to go to a party, and what dress are you going to wear? The party is only next week or the week after, but you're thinking about what dress you are going to wear now. Now, thinking of that, you want to look at your best. And don't be surprised that the dress you choose, 5 others might have the same dress at the party. So now, using the mind in that way, thinking today of what is going to happen in a few weeks' time in the future can only bring anxiety upon you. Now, anxiety has a lot of blood brothers. Anxiety can make you feel nervous. It can make you feel very tense, stress. So, why not have the attitude that when the day of the party comes, I'll see what I'm going to wear. Why think about it now? Yes. Now that is how the ordinary, average human mind functions, and they leave the beauty of the presence. How many times when you are doing something, your mind is wandering? It's wandering somewhere else. How many times don't you wash the dishes 10 times in your mind before you actually wash the dishes? So it means you've washed the dishes 11 times. That creates extra stress and extra loss of energy. Now, by living in the present, all your energies are preserved, and by these various projections, a tremendous amount of energy is lost. A tremendous amount of stress is created, which is not beneficial. And the reason being that the mind is scattered and fragmented. It is not concentrated. Now, to find the reality of life, one has to bring the mind together, a concentrated mind. and therefore a lot of you do the practice of tratak, which without concentrating and just by a certain kind of focus which our teachers teach you, you automatically become concentrated. And when you become concentrated, you become one-pointed. The difference between failure and success is only one: the fact of concentration. The less concentrated you are, the more you fail in whatever you are doing, and the more concentrated you are, one-pointed, the greater the success would come. So, therefore, for everyone, spiritual practices are so necessary. The disturbance is not from the environment. All disturbances are within ourselves. Now, I think I asked you if a blackboard could be arranged. If it could be arranged, then I'd like to explain you how the mind works. How you have the manas that is governed by sensory input. Then you have the chitta, which is the memory box or the subconscious. Then you have the ahankara, which is the ego's self. And then you have the buddhi, and underlying all that, how that spiritual energy works. The idea is to tap into it. And there are various individualized practices that are given to meditators, which they are for themselves, because there are no two people alike. Each and every person is unique. So, by doing these practices without effort, one learns to live in the present. For every moment is the present. And the entirety of eternity is in this moment. There is nothing else at all. The rest is an illusion. Your memories are an illusion. For example, someone said a nasty word to you 3 weeks ago. You're still mulling over it and feeling bad. So, one has to learn to manage oneself. We try to manage the world, but first manage oneself. And then the world will automatically become managed in such a beautiful way. Everything would be conducive to you. At every moment, every aspect of nature is supportive to you. But if you build that thick wall around you, then naturally that support is lost. So, if you want that inner calm, inner peace, and any doctor will tell you today that all diseases manifest itself first from the mind, are in the mind, and then they translate themselves into organic diseases. So, if the mind becomes one concentrated and with proper thinking, listening to holy men, reading good books, doing spiritual practices, the mind would become concentrated. And then nothing can disturb you. For example, if this door slams, many would shudder, they'll get a shock. For me, if you have any mountains around here, it could collapse, or an atom bomb could explode, and I won't be disturbed. Because you do not think of the consequences. And by not thinking of the consequences, you are yourself at that moment and not living in the projection of the mind. Some might say, be like Christ, be like Buddha, be like this one or that one. I say no, be yourself. And when you learn to be yourself, then you will find that so much wanted togetherness in yourself. And this, you do not require a great intellect for it, really. Because it's so simple. I always say it is so difficult. What's that saying of mine? Remind? Yes.
It's so easy to be. I know the last line.
Yes. It is so simple to be happy, but so difficult to be simple. So difficult to be simple. So, if we can, and to be here and now requires a simplicity. It requires simplicity. And with simplicity, there is humility. Devotion develops in that simplicity. You don't become simplistic, but you become simple. And once that quality is assumed, your whole life is transformed. And the mind, as though being a cunning animal, can also be the most useful tool, but it has to be used in its proper way. So I don't know if I've said in a talk here on previous trips that I would challenge Vincent Peale at any time on any public platform. He says if you have a negative thought in the mind, you replace it with a positive thought. It is impossible. If there is a negative thought in the mind, that is what I would say, is to first, through a little practice, bring the mind to a neutrality and then introduce the positive thought, and then it works. Otherwise, here you are creating a conflict between negativity and positivity. And that conflict brings more problems. And because of the problems, it would verge more to the negative self. So, to be here and now. And I've said this before. Now here, put the words together, nowhere. So if you take nowhere and separated the words, it is now here. Yes. Now what's the difference between nowhere and now here? Because now here is nowhere. So where are you now? We think we are sitting in this room so still, but really speaking, we are hurtling through space. 5 minutes ago, we were in a different place in the solar system. And the entire solar system is 5 minutes ago, was in a certain place, and 5 minutes later, it's in a different part of the galaxy. So motion rules life, and the mind is filled with motion. If the mind is quietened and stilled by our spiritual practices, the entire universe disappears. For everything around us is a creation of the mind, be it positive or negative. But what the realized man does, he rises above all positivity and negativity, because the two have to exist. One cannot exist alone without the other. Sometimes a greater attention is upon one and lesser attention upon the other. Yes, but like pain and pleasure, they have to exist. If you have 1 week of a high, as they say, pleasure, be sure the following week you're going to have pain. But rise above it. You've heard Milarepa, he wrote that when I was ignorant, I did black deeds. And when I grew up and gained some more knowledge, I did white deeds. And now I do neither. Now that is the state one has to reach to be in the present, where you do neither. Am I speaking to you? No, I'm not. And if I should say that I am speaking to you, then I'd be involving my ego self. And the ego self is conditioned, patterned. So by doing neither, one is not influenced by the ego self, and when one is not influenced by the ego self, you realize the meaning of reality. Then you are real, because you have then transcended, gone beyond all the pettinesses of life. Because life is petty, according to the way we live it. We live in fears that does not make us live in the present. And the basic fear, which you might consciously have or subconsciously, is the fear of death. And why do you fear death? Because you feel that you're losing your ego self. But what are you really losing? The ego self is just a conditioning. It has no reality of its own. It is there in the manifestation, kept alive by the divine energy. So, one does not annihilate the ego self. It is impossible. Because without the ego, you cannot live at all. You've got to have, even the self-realized man must have that little 2% of the I sense, the ego sense. Though otherwise it'd be totally non-functional. He wouldn't even be able to do his biological functions. But what can one do with our spiritual practices is to expand the ego so that it would, like a piece of rubber, it would lose its opaqueness and becomes transparent, so that divine energy which is within everyone shines through in its fullness to clarify the ego, to clarify the mind. And when that light shines through in its fullness, then you are in the present. Otherwise, you are in the past or in the future. So, to repeat, it's not a matter of annihilation, it's a matter of expanding, so that the opaqueness disappears from the ego and a clarity is there. And in this clarity, which is of course a rarity, but everyone can achieve it, undoubtedly. Today you find psychologists, and Vidya is one. They scratch the surface level. They churn up all the problems you have in your mind. What does it help by churning up all those problems? You're not going to eradicate them. What could also happen is this, that by mulling over your problems all the time, they become more deeply embedded in your subconscious mind, which will naturally rear its ugly head later. And then, if one problem goes, another problem starts. So, according to modern psychoanalysis, you can take Adler, Freud, Jung, a lot of them. They'll cure A toeache can give you a headache or vice versa. But what we do is forget the surface self and through meditation reach the inner self, and from inwardly we push out that which is troubling on the surface. So that is the basis, the inner self. But people are so externally orientated that the inner self is totally forgotten. While that should have the greatest importance, it is the inner self that activates the entirety of what we call a life. So to be in the present, one has to lose all fear, leap into the unknown. And fears are of many kinds, but they all stem from the fear of losing oneself. Do the scriptures not say, die before you can find life? That is what is meant. To lose oneself and not be wrapped up in our own personal feelings and emotions, because that makes you what we call negative. And yet, if you do not experience negativity, you will never experience positivity. So everything has its relative value. For example, if you take a photograph, what do you get first? The negative. And that is transferred to the positive. So these things will always be there. And I think I said yesterday, I was reminded this morning, you got to observe yourself. To observe yourself. And you can be a part of yourself. There is that super level conscious of the mind that could stand aside and watch the doings of the conscious and subconscious self. But remember one thing, that it is an illusion. It is Maya as far as Maya or illusion, as far as the superconsciousness is concerned, but it is real for the conscious. And once we reach that level of superconsciousness through our spiritual practices, the conscious mind will function. It would be like sitting at the seashore and watching the waves play. That's the surface level, the waves. But deep down, as you would know, the ocean is calm. Now, if the waves are there and we can't get rid of the waves, become a surfer and enjoy the waves, surfing on them. So any problem can also be made enjoyable if you realize the oneness of all things. For how can the ocean exist without the waves? So let me use the waves by becoming a surfer. And yet at the same time, you are totally conscious of the calmness of the ocean, just a bit deeper down than the waves. So, we lose our sense of proportion by only watching the turbulent waves. And then how can we be in the present? Because waves has a nature of moving, moving, moving all the time. But the surfer, for example, while he is on the waves, and because of the enjoyment he finds in surfing, lose the consciousness of the turbulence, he would say, let the waves be even more higher. Let there be more turbulence on the surface so I could enjoy my surfing even more. You see. So, people always say that how can I lose myself because I have so many desires. Nothing wrong with that. There are certain philosophers that would say have no desire. It is impossible because the mind will be there. And even after you leave this physical frame, the mind will still exist until it takes on another bodily form according to his merit or demerit to evolve further. So therefore, there is hope always. It is not thinking, how can I be in the present? The whole idea that we've talked about is, let us create the conditions so that we can be in the present. The housewife makes a nice bowl of soup, like Bina did, so enjoyable yesterday. Now, you need all the ingredients which you put together to make the soup. And once you put all your ingredients together, the soup is there. So although we have the end sight in mind that I want to reach divinity and be in the present and find eternity, that the end aim is to make soup, but I have to concentrate more on the ingredients that go into the soup. Do you see? So, to be in the present is something that one cannot achieve by waving a magic wand. Because to have that ability just to be in the present all the time is to be one with God. And if anyone tells you that I will show you God in 2 hours or 2 years or 3 years, please run away, far away. He can't. And you have such teachers in this world, fake ones, unfortunately. But people having so many troubles sometimes clutch like a drowning man even onto a straw. You have to achieve it for yourself. The true guru only shows you the way, the method. He gives you the tools. He gives you the understanding. But you have to walk with your own feet. Even if a person has a false leg like you had one runner here, running right across Canada, 1,700 kilometers?
7,000.
7,000 is it? Yeah. Now, although the doctors fitted on an artificial leg for him, which was required, he had to do the running himself. No one ran for him. Likewise, we have to do things ourselves. And if we don't, nothing can be achieved. Therefore, I'm always saying, be regular, be regular, be regular in the spiritual practices that were given to you, and they're all totally unique to you yourself because you are a unique person. They're tailor-made. If you wear a size 36 suit, you can't wear a size 42 or a 32. It has to be 36, tailor-made. And that is how real masters give practices to their chelas. And believe you me, you will learn very easily to be in the present. It depends how much you put in. Now, this does not mean that you have to sit from morning till night in meditation. No. Too much of it is no good, you'll get crazy. Tries to cure you and gives you the medicines, but really speaking, you are curing yourself. We only give the tools to cure yourself. If a person wants to develop a big muscular body, it's no good reading up all Charles Atlas's books. You've got to exercise yourself. So now all these things would lead you to the present. Eternity in a moment. And it's not so difficult as it sounds. It's the simplest thing because you are divine yourself. You do not need to go and look for it. It is just unfolding yourself. It is not something you have to achieve. Because you are divine yourself. Everything is divine. Everything you see around you is divine. Nothing else but divinity. There's no, I've said this before, there's no difference between me and this table. We are made of the same molecular structure, but in a different format, a different form. This table here is alive. You can see the life in it. You can feel the life in it. How millions and billions of molecules are in motion there, and motion is life. So this table is living as you are living. The greatest gift given to man is the ability to forget. If you could remember all the happenings of your lifetime, the bad ones mostly, life would become unbearable today. So we learn to forget. We learn to forget by clarifying the mind more and more and more. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself centered. And that centering is being in the present. So all these intellectual exercises and things are necessary along the path. All knowledge is necessary for those along the path. Gaining knowledge is necessary. But we reach a stage where in the present, when we live in the present, no knowledge is unnecessary. Nothing needs to be acquired because you become it all. You are knowledge yourself. You are ANANDA, bliss yourself. You are absolute. There's nothing wrong with you. All the things you find wrong with you is just in your mind, nowhere else. So we culture the mind. And by culturing the mind, we unclutter the mind. And when we achieve, as we achieve more and more cleaning of the mind, the uncluttering of the mind, the more happier and happier and happier we become. Your nervous tension will go, becomes less. You wouldn't need all your Libriums and Valiums. And you feel calm, just in a moment. It is so important. Do you know, I was telling someone the other day that in Cape Town, where I come from, there's a very, very wealthy area called Sea Point. And the main road is 1.5 miles long. And in that 1.5 miles, there are 28 chemist shops, pharmacists. So I spoke to one of the pharmacists one day, a friend of mine, a meditator. I says, what is your biggest sale? She says, Valiums and Libriums, all those tranquilizers. Now here you have the secret within yourself of how to tranquilize yourself, and then they use drugs. And many of these psychiatrists, when they can't understand a problem, what do they give you? Tranquilizers. But the true guru gives you other kinds of tranquilizers. Your mind becomes still, quiet, loving. And yet you can be so, for I never speak of morality or your doings. I speak of purity. And there's a great difference between morality and purity. Naturally, a person must be moral to preserve a certain form of equilibrium, perhaps, in society. Yeah, but purity comes from within the heart. For any action then performed with the tranquil mind would be a pure action, non-motivated, not seeking any reward, but performing all actions in life for the purpose of the performance, to act just because you have to act, and not the rewards thereof. That is, of course, quoting from the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita. Most of you must have read that. You see, so we come back to the present. Now, that can be achieved through our spiritual practices, where you feel that you are present, and it can also come by knowing that I'm just a bubble in the ocean, present in that moment to merge away, the bubble bursts, to merge away in that which is all present. And that is the aim and secret of life. So you see how easy it is. Yes. So if you are not meditating, if you do not have any of your personalized practices, do try it out, even for a few weeks. The proof of the pudding lies in the eating. And if you don't like the pudding, throw it away. Our organization never ties you down to anything. It gives you total freedom because we talk of freedom. The only thing is, do your practices sincerely, regularly, and you find the benefits, and you feel the present. And funny enough, as I said earlier, when you are in the present moment, you feel as if you are everywhere at the same time. You're in the trees, you're in the flowers, you're in the light, you have captured the entire universe within yourself. And all friction then ceases, because if you are me, then how can there be any friction at all? It is only the sense of duality that causes friction. But when through the knowledge or the experience of the present, when the sense of duality is lost, and then you really have what we call unity consciousness, which is beyond God consciousness. God consciousness is when you say, oh, he's somewhere else and I'm here. Unity consciousness is, he is me and I am him. We are one. Yes. So, for many, it could be a long path. And for many, it is just there. Take these lights here. For example, it must have taken the electricians and the manufacturers and this, that, so many months and months and months of work. And yet if we want to put on the lights, we flick it on in a second. So all this is just preparation for the moment of illumination. And just comes like that. The new illumination light. For all is light. I am the light, as it is said in all theologies. Who's the I? You yourself is the I. In that unity consciousness. No darkness. Good. Let's see what we have in our trick bag.